world is once again holding its breath. Tensions between Iran and the United States, which had briefly eased under a fragile ceasefire, have now spiraled into a far more dangerous escalation. In just a matter of days, the situation has evolved at an alarming pace, as if the world is moving toward a point of no return. What once seemed like a contained regional conflict is now showing signs of expanding into a much broader global crisis, raising fears of a large-scale war. When diplomacy fails and military power begins to dominate the conversation, history has shown that peace becomes increasingly difficult to preserve. One of the most striking developments comes from the United States, which has officially initiated a naval blockade targeting Iranian ports. This move is not merely tactical. It sends a powerful signal that Washington is prepared to apply maximum pressure. The blockade aims to cripple Iran's economy, which heavily depends on oil exports, while forcing Tehran to reconsider its nuclear ambitions. However, from Iran's perspective, this action is viewed as a direct act of aggression that cannot go unanswered. Iranian officials have warned that such measures could trigger a surge in global energy prices and potentially expand the conflict across the entire Gulf region. At the same time, diplomatic efforts have failed to produce any meaningful breakthrough. Talks held in Islamabad between high-level officials from both nations ended without an agreement. While there were initial indications that both sides wanted to avoid a major confrontation, deep-rooted differences over sanctions, nuclear programs, and regional security ultimately proved insurmountable. Years of mistrust stood firmly in the way of compromise. Even after hours of intense discussions, no significant progress was made. Behind the scenes of these failed negotiations, the machinery of war continues to move forward. The United States has reportedly deployed significant military assets to the Middle East, including a substantial increase in air power, reaching levels comparable to major military operations of the past. This scale of mobilization evokes memories of previous large-scale conflicts, signaling that Washington is not only preparing for diplomatic pressure, but also for the possibility of direct military confrontation. Iran, on the other hand, is not standing idle. Statements from senior Iranian officials indicate a state of full readiness to respond to any potential attack. Missile systems have been placed on high alert, combat drones are being mobilized, and military forces are prepared for rapid engagement. Tehran has made it clear that any military move by the United States will be met with a powerful and immediate response. The rhetoric is becoming increasingly sharp, with Iranian leaders emphasizing that they will not back down, even if it means entering a full-scale war. What makes this situation even more concerning is the global impact that is already beginning to take shape. International financial institutions have warned that rising tensions are slowing global economic growth and fueling inflation. Energy prices are climbing, supply chains are under pressure, and countries that rely heavily on energy imports are beginning to feel the strain. If the conflict continues, or worse, escalates further, the consequences could extend far beyond the Middle East. The Strait of Hormuz, a critical artery for global oil transportation, has once again become a focal point of concern. Iran possesses the capability to disrupt or even shut down this vital route, which would have immediate and severe consequences for global energy supply. Tensions in this area are not just a regional issue. They represent a direct threat to worldwide economic stability. Meanwhile, the international community finds itself divided. Some nations are calling for de-escalation and a return to diplomatic negotiations, while others are quietly preparing for the possibility of a wider conflict. Military and political alliances are being tested, and global powers such as Russia and China are closely monitoring the situation, ready to act in accordance with their strategic interests. Perhaps the most alarming reality is that this conflict is no longer just about two nations. With multiple regional actors involved and the potential for global intervention, the risk of escalation into a much larger war is becoming increasingly real. A single miscalculation, a limited strike, a naval incident, or even an unintended clash could ignite a chain reaction that spirals out of control. The world now stands at a critical crossroads. Will diplomacy find a way to prevail, or are we witnessing the early stages of a conflict that could reshape the global order? History teaches us that major wars are rarely the result of a single decision, but rather a series of escalating events that eventually become impossible to contain. And right now, those warning signs are everywhere. Second by second, the clock is ticking, and the world can only watch and wait. Is this just another crisis, or the beginning of something far more devastating?